Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrea McEwen Henderson, and I will be your host. I am one of the national account managers with College Recruiter. College Recruiter is used by recent grads and students of every 1, 2, and 4-year college and graduate school. Today we will be speaking with Kevin George, CEO and co-founder of Hire Canvas. Hire Canvas makes managing the campus recruiting process simple for campus recruiters. They enable companies to recruit top talent by leveraging employees and their university networks. So again, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today as we are discussing capturing information at recruiting events. So Kevin, how important are events for recruiting on campus?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here. And that's, I think, one of the things that makes campus recruiting special is how event-driven the process is. You got to put yourselves in the shoes of those students who are getting into the workforce for the first time, especially at the undergraduate level. And having that brand going to campus and making people aware that you're and what your company even does is really important. Because as a professional, it may be very easy to think of any company in any particular industry, but as a student, those things aren't as natural. And the example I'd give here is, if you imagine Pepsi and Coke both recruiting at the same university year over year, and if one of them were to go to campus while the other one didn't, you'd find that company with a lot more applications. So I really think that presence is very important in terms of branding and making students aware of what you do.
Absolutely. So what is the point of organizing student information at events?
Right. And so, it's not just about being there. Branding is one of the most important pieces of the campus process, but just showing up isn't going to help you understand how effective you are or what schools are best fit for you. And that, as they say, you can't improve what you don't track. And that all starts with understanding who you're talking to, what type of attributes these people are at different schools, and keeping that information in an organized way is what actually enables you to digest it and make sense of all of it.
Got it. So in talking about this, what are the right data points that we should collect at recruiting events?
Right. And one of the things that's really important is just the absolutely most basic contact information. So who are these people? So often it's easy to go to an event and say, yeah, it was a big success. We spoke to 100 people at our information session. But can you follow up with them? Can you get in touch with them? Do we know who they are? So at the most basic level, it's simple contact information. But to take it a step further, we're definitely going to want to know things about, what studying, what field of interest they may have, because so often you'll see someone who may be an economics major could be interested in a marketing position or an HR position or many different types of fields. And so asking students some of those qualifying questions and understanding that information can help you as a program evolve over time and understand what places and schools are the best fit for you.
So now, is there a line, or would you think there's a line between too much data and too little data?
Yeah, and that's a very fine line to walk. That's a good question, because I've talked a lot about capturing information as if it's kind of this thing that just organically happens. But of course, you need to actually facilitate that information gathering. And so the more you ask, the longer it takes, right? So if you're thinking of a career fair setting, a lunch and learn, whatever the setting may be, if you're asking students to fill out, that takes time. And you don't want to create a bottleneck or frustrate students by asking for 20, 25 data points. But by keeping it to those core, most essential things around contact information, graduating date, major area of interest. Maybe if you're in accounting, you want to know that a student's 150 credits eligible. Maybe if you're a government contractor, you may be interested to know if someone needs sponsorship. Those types of things. Being able to ask the questions that are right for you, but keeping it to that basic number is really important.
I agree. So that's all going to play into the candidate experience.
Right.
So now I want to talk to you about follow-up time and engagement with the candidates. How important is following up?
I couldn't stress it enough. I think so often it's very easy to go to an event, go to a place where you're meeting students, whether it be a resume workshop, whatever. But this isn't just about saying, hi, we're here and this is what we do. It's about building a relationship. Because for these students, they're learning what the culture is like at your company and at other companies. And when they're walking around that career fair and they hand out their resume to 10, 15 companies, maybe only 5 companies, that can feel like a black hole to a student because they may not hear back from any people and they don't know why, and it's very frustrating. And something as simple as, it was so nice to meet you today, thanks for stopping our career fair booth, goes such a long way in terms of building that relationship. Whether or not that student's a fit for you, they may not be, but it just helps build that kind of aura of positivity around your company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how much does the timing matter, or the follow-up speed after an event?
Yeah, I mean, and as anyone viewing can kind of put this in the context of their own professional careers, it works the exact same way, right? I mean, if you and I have this meeting today and I shoot you a summary of what we spoke about next week, it's not going to be so relevant versus getting that same day turnaround and getting people interested and excited about what you do. So if I was to be a student that met at a career fair and they sent me an email, thanks for stopping by. 2 days later, I got an email that said, hey, we have a couple positions that you might be interested in. Check out the jobs on your school board. And then 3 days later, I heard about them coming back to campus. That's a lot of consistency. And when I'm, as a student, looking for jobs in this universe that I don't quite understand, having someone consistent and someone that I can rely on and knowing that I can engage with them makes all the difference in the world. And so I really do think that, especially for these top prospects, right? I mean, we're talking about some of the best students that may have multiple offers. And if you're offering competitive packages with your peers in the industry, what differentiates you is going to be your culture. And I'd rather be the company that someone feels very warm about versus the one that they heard from once.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, do you think there's value in engaging employees to contribute to the follow-up?
This is one of the biggest things for me, and I guess some of this comes back to my personal experience, but I think having employees engaged and kind of creating this culture of recruitment within a business is the most important thing you can do when approaching campus, because that poor campus recruiter whose role it is to visit so many campuses and speak with so many students semester after semester, they're usually recruiting for more than one job rec. And usually it's across different departments or different parts of the business with different stakeholders. And the person who's spent 3 years at a company and is an alumni of a target school is the best person to speak with a junior at that target school interested in an internship, because they can give them that, hey, I was in your shoes and I did the internship and this is where I am today and this is why it was such a good experience for me. And that's something that any given recruiter can't deliver because they don't have that kind of alumni affinity that an employee may have. And so building those interactions and those connections is absolutely essential.
So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the impact on reporting. How important is it to have information in real time?
Right, and this is a really big point because a lot of what we've seen today in the space is that a lot of the information that is kind of gathered throughout the season is really looked at retroactively. And it's kind of how did we do last semester? And the challenge with this is being able to make decisions that would actually improve your current semester, not necessarily the one ahead. And to mean by that, to give an example, would be to be able to look at a pipeline in real time and say, hey, we met 400 students from University A, but we've actually only seen 15 applications come through so far. Why don't we send out an email to all the students we've met so far just to make them aware that the application's open. Because for all we know, maybe it's buried on the school board. Maybe students are having trouble finding it. Or maybe there's a technical error we don't even know about. And that simple knowledge, just understanding where you are in the process and where the pipeline is, can actually inspire you to make some of those really, really simple decisions that could actually have a big impact on how many people you actually wind up hiring.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do I reconcile, or a recruiter reconcile, event information with their prospect channels?
Right. So that's a big challenge, and a good question. Because I've spoken today a lot about events, but it's really important to recognize that events aren't the only place you're going to find or meet students or prospects. I think it's an important one, but not the only one. And so it's important to have the internal systems and the right processes that can speak with one another and give you this cohesive view of what's actually going on in your program. And honestly, that starts at the top, whether it be, depending on the size of the business, the director of campus or the VP of talent acquisition, kind of saying and getting the buy-in from the team and says, this is how we're going to go to campus. These are the sets of questions that we want, or the set of information that we want to record from each student when we go to events, when they come through our job portal, whether that be from their college website or from our internally hosted job portal, so that we have some sort of standard set information that we're actually comparing apples to apples on these. Because one of the toughest things to do is to have an employee raising their hand and saying, I met Susan on campus, she's an all-star. And then to have a hiring manager say, well, I've got Frank, and he came through our online portal, and he looks like a really good fit. But then not have the same information or the same view to see these people, to actually know how to compare them and kind of pick who should be the interview.
Got it. So my last question for you is, what does event level detail really tell me?
Right. And so, I talked a little bit about some of the data points. We see people capturing some of the things that are most important. But when you're actually meeting students at these events, you can really get to a whole new level of granularity. And ultimately, when you're capturing information about what students are going to what events, you can get a lot smarter about, not at the end of the season being able to say, we had 50 applicants from Columbia and 50 applicants from NYU. Okay, so, on the surface, they seem kind of similar. But if you had event level detail, you can come in and say, well, we did 2 career fairs at NYU and 3 information sessions. And as a result, at these 600 students. Of these 600 students, 30% of them converted into applicants, and we also had these other, batch of students apply that we never met through events. And so when you're really capturing this event level detail, you can understand how effective are my career fairs and my information sessions, and what does that all mean? What's my return on investment? Which is actually a really difficult number to tangibly drive to, but it helps you understand. You can say, I met 200 students at a career fair and I met 20 at an information session. But if 100% of them from the information session turned into applicants and they were of higher quality, then the information session may have been a better return on investment. Mm-hmm. But if you're not getting down to that level of detail, it can be very difficult to identify that.
That's great. Well, Kevin, you might have to come back and talk some more around metrics. So that was good. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hope this was helpful, and I appreciate you having me.
Sounds good. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.